There's something so precious when our meditation becomes a place of utter safety and allowance. That, in a sense, as animals, it's what we're most looking for. A space where we can relax deeply and let go of having to be anything, be able to let go of things needing to be any particular way. And when we can find this place where we can be our unique selves, uninhibited, there is an incredible potential for healing. Because in this place, regardless of external circumstances or how our life is going, we have a refuge. We have a place to come back to that feels like home. That we can be completely uninhibited. We can be completely free. And at the same time, it's a place where we are also seen unconditionally, exactly for how we are in that moment. In a sense, what we are offering to ourselves in our practice is love. So it's just a way to reframe meditation time. In particular, if it feels like it's something that needs to be done, if I'm using it as a strategy to get somewhere, that a different way of looking at meditation is that it's really a homecoming. Mm-hmm. Right, so the question is about, is this place or this meditation that we experience that I've been referring to as a refuge or a place where we can feel safe? How does that address the fact that sometimes we can have experiences or states such as fear, for example, where we can feel incredible unsafety? Right? Like how where is the coherence in that? Mm-hmm. And that if you can view the meditation as a container or an environment for safety, in the sense that even though I might be experiencing really difficult emotions, extreme anxiety or fear, it's happening still within the realm or the container of my grounded body. Even if I'm feeling ungrounded in that moment, there's nobody else there. Nothing's happening around me. That the perception is that I am in an unsafe situation, but the actual reality is that there is safety. So I want to discern between the container or the environment that we're creating in our meditation practice and the experience that we're having. And that the container that we're creating is that anything is allowed, even extreme fear or the feeling of unsafety. And that I can hold that with non-judgment. I can hold that with care. I can hold that with attention, with acknowledgement, with presence, even if it's very difficult in that moment. So I'm not suggesting that our meditation is always going to feel safe, or our experiences that are happening within the meditation realm are always going to be pleasant or comfortable. But it is a place that we can come back to That's different than going to a friend where I don't know what state or conditions my friend is going to be in and if they can receive me and what the outcome is going to be of that. So not only is there my unsafety, I don't know if the place that I'm going to is safe or not. Right. And so it's just really it's something that develops over time. So I'm not trying to, I don't want to convince you of this. You know, there is something about just returning over and over and over and being allowed and in a sense being seen and acknowledged, where a lot of times we're looking for that externally. When I'm wanting empathy for my difficulties, I'm generally seeking that from somebody else. And I can offer that to myself within my meditation space. That same attention, that same interest. I really appreciate the prompts, in particular when we're talking about fear and anxiety and how meditation can be supportive of being with those emotions. And so oftentimes what's skipped over is that the emotion is coupled with the not wanting. Mm-hmm. So that when I am experiencing fear, I'm also really not wanting it. Mm-hmm. Or when I'm experiencing anxiety, it's so unpleasant, I want it to go away. And so in meditation, as we start to refine our observation skills, you will actually see that a single experience is actually no longer a single experience. It's made up of a bunch of different other threads of experiences that we've clumped up grossly because we lack the finesse to actually be able to see or to discern because our attention is not trained yet. And so one aspect of being with fear in meditation is the willingness, just the sincerity and the willingness of wanting to hold that addresses the strategizing that arises from trying to avoid it because I don't want it. So let me make this a little bit more concrete, maybe. So I can look and notice that I'm experiencing a lot of fear. The first thing I need to do is disentangle or disidentify that I am experiencing fear. Fear is happening. If I entangle myself by saying that I'm experiencing fear, it makes it much harder for me to be able to watch it. But if I notice fear and I'm able to create a separation and I'm able to say, fear, 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 I'm just noting it, right? This is what's happening. Fear is happening. That gives me enough space to actually be able to observe it. And if I continue to observe it, I might be noticing not wanting, right? So now I'm no longer enmeshed with what the experience is. Now I'm a witness. Mm-hmm. And what that does is it de-escalates or deactivates a little bit what the experience is like, because now it's happening not necessarily to me, it's just happening and I'm watching it. Mm-hmm. And that de-escalation is enough to gain a little bit with presence, a little bit of real estate with presence, or a little bit of connection to what's actually happening. And that little bit of de-escalation allows me to have more awareness available to watch it even more carefully. So that's what we're doing when we're making contact. Now, of course, my disclaimer is that if we're dealing with extreme fear or if we're dealing with extreme anxiety, meeting that experience might not be the wisest decision if we're already too activated. Mm-hmm. And so what we want to do is we want to maybe ground first. So a body scan is perfect for that, because oftentimes where fear and anxiety is residing is mostly in the mental content. It's mostly in the stories we're telling ourselves. And that is perpetuating even more fear and more anxiety. But if we're able to drop into the body, into the felt sense, the sensory field, sounds, the visual cue, right? And not drill down onto what is this fear and trying to understand and trying to get into it, but really kind of relax a little bit the attention so it's more global. It's incorporating more. that in itself takes away the narrowness of the focus of the fear and gives it more spaciousness so that we can actually relax a little bit and be with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's different things that we can try within the meditation space. But the meditation space offers us the safety to actually experiment. So, a clarification on what meditation is. And I love that you brought this up, that, wow, we've talked about meditation and there's all of these different descriptions. And it really is. Meditation is just a space, right? It could be a place where I go to develop and enhance a skill. So maybe I'm just trying to increase my somatic awareness so that every time I meditate, I'm just paying attention to sensations because I really want to reconfigure my brain to actually be able to detect that more so that as I move through my day to day, I have more accessibility to somatic awareness. Or maybe meditation is a place where I want to cultivate the attitude of interest and care, right? It's a completely different skill that I'm working on. And so in that case, anything that arises, I'm just interested or curious. And if I notice that I go into story and I wake up from that, I become curious about that. And so that I can use it to also cultivate a certain attitude. If I'm needing replenishment and nourishment after a really exhausting day that's been super taxing, and I don't want to even practice any skill, I just want to relax, I can use my meditation in the context of that, where I know nothing's happening, nothing is required of me, I don't need to do anything, I can even fall asleep if I want, and I'm just going to focus on what it's the deliciousness of what it is to relax and let myself surrender to that, fall back into that to enjoy that.
Mm-hmm.
So, meditation, it's kind of the analogy I like to use it is it can be a therapist office where I'm sitting there and I'm just like allowing, anything that comes forward to be seen and heard and acknowledged. It could be a gym where I'm working out a specific skill and I'm trying to strengthen that. It could be a laboratory where I'm experimenting with different scenarios to see, ooh, what happens? What happens if I let fear out of without trying to control it, let it release? How do I react to that? What's my conditioning? So it could be a place of learning. It's really whatever we want it to be. But at the foundational level, it needs to be a place where we can feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
We're not being evaluated by somebody. We're not having to restrict who we are or what our experiences are. So the gift of meditation is that we can do anything we want. Nobody's going to judge us except for ourselves. Nobody's going to see us. Nobody's going to interrupt us. It's space. It's space to experiment. It's space to be weird. It's space to get back to that childlike quality of who cares? I don't have to explain myself. I don't have to justify myself. I can do whatever I want. And this comes back to the theme that we talked about last week, where the prompt was, do you know that you really want to be doing this right now? That so much of how we go about our day is conditioned around accommodating others or doing what we think we should be doing or self-sacrificing for however we want to justify it, right? That I'm a good person and therefore I do things this way. I always follow through with my plans, or, this person really needs me in this moment. And even if I'm under-resourced, I'm going to be there because that's what it means to be a good friend. Like all of these things, these habits that we've developed. How much of that is it because we actually truly, sincerely want to do what we're doing? And how much of that is conditioned or because we're afraid that we're going to be perceived in a particular way? Freedom comes from being able to let go of that. Freedom comes from doing what we think is the best for us. And I know what's probably coming up in our minds is oh, well, that's selfish. There's nothing wrong with being selfish. How can you serve someone else if you're not resourced and if you haven't taken care of yourself first? And so oftentimes when I suggest to folks, start to tune into when you do something, if it's something you really want to do. And if you don't want to do it, drop it if it's not pressing. And notice what happens when you do that. And the response that I often get from folks is, well, I don't even know what I want to do. And so meditation can be a place where you start actually cultivating that awareness, where you give yourself unrestricted space and you let yourself come out uninhibited. And yourself will come out little by little if you give it space because it wants to come out. And so make sounds. Get up and dance. Stretch, roll around, whatever comes into mind. Let yourself do it. Give yourself permission. Because it's in this permissiveness that we actually start to connect to who we've let go of.
Yeah.
It's almost like an essential component. Self-connection is almost a essential component in order to truly be of service to the world. Because when our needs are met, we're available. We're available to meet the needs of others.
Mm-hmm.
And until our needs are met, we are continuously engaging in strategies, oftentimes unhealthy strategies, to try to meet those needs. And most of the time, because those needs are unconscious, we're not aware of it, because we don't let ourselves land with the pain or the discomfort of what's actually happening. And we skip automatically into a strategy to cope and to push it away or to distract or whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
When we make contact with what's actually happening and we look closely, what we will find is that if it happens to feel unpleasant, we immediately engage in some kind of coping strategy to get us out of there. Almost always we skip over, because who wants to hang out with the unpleasant? That's natural. But the unpleasant gives us really important information about what's actually going on. So I'll give an example to solidify this. Anxiety gives me really important information that there are way more demands than I have resources available to meet those demands. And if I'm able to connect with what that anxiety is, the taste of it, the unpleasantness of it, and be with it versus the story, one, it's showing me that there's something that really needs to be addressed because it's painful. And by staying with it, once again, I start to develop more availability of awareness, because everything that is passing through our nervous system wants to be seen and felt. That's what it's designed to do. Emotions are designed to tell us whether our needs are met or unmet. And if we distract, or if we pull away from them, if we avoid them, the need still has not been met.
Right.
And it's going to come up again.
Right.
And we're going to come up with another strategy to keep it under control. Right. And it's all good for a little bit, and then it's going to come up again. Right. And it just keeps popping up again. And we keep spinning out on all of these strategies. And the whole time we're not looking at what's actually happening. And until you get clarity about what's happening, you can't change the pattern. And you can't have clarity unless you have enough energy and awareness available to see. And yet that energy and that clarity is not available if you're wasting and bleeding all of it out, engaging in all of these coping strategies. So you're stuck. You're stuck in the state. That doesn't clear it up. It's like this chronic anxiety. Where is it coming from? Right? And I can see it. I mean, this is how our society is operating. People are in a chronic state of anxiety because they have so many things to do, but they won't make half an hour time of their day for wellness. This is the last thing that they're going to do. Well, guess what? Until you clear up and get resource, you're not going to be able to pull out of it. It's not enough awareness available.
Right.